Well, Trevor, it's so fabulous to meet you. I've just had so many people interested in coming to hear this talk with you and Jerry, and I'm really excited to hear a bit about you because this is the first time we've met. I was wondering if you could tell me what the theme is in the name CrossCultureVC. I think it's beautiful, it sort of appeals to me, but I really don't know the background behind it.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. So CrossCulture Ventures is a early stage fund that's focused around culture. We think that when you think about the value creation at the early stage of startups, that a huge component of that is in a company's ability to latch on to mainstream cultural trends. So we spend a lot of time trying to understand culture and where it's going and investing in founders that are best able to take companies into the next generation of cultural shifts.
So tell me, what is culture to you, what you've experienced so far?
Sure. So culture are the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that drive consumer culture. Okay. So it's kind of like a interpersonality, if you will, of a society that helps to guide how they live, what they buy, etc., etc.
Interesting. Could you tell me what domains you're interested in, what really you're passionate about and you look for in startups?
So we look across industries, across sectors. Personally, I have a background in consumer packaged goods, so I'm very interested in that kind of a little bit off the beaten path branch of venture, but also love tech, consumer enterprise, everything.
Great. And some of the companies you've invested in, what would be outstanding to you?
Sure. So a couple companies that we've invested in that are notable are Thrive Market, which is kind of like a Costco meets Whole Foods e-commerce model that's doing quite well. Wow. We invested in a company called Gimlet Media, which is one of the best podcasts out. And we've invested in a company called Sidestep, which reduces a lot of the friction in buying merchandise at live events. And of course, as we'll talk about a little later, we've invested in Lynn Street, which is a great FinTech company that's a socially conscious debt resettlement platform.
Fabulous. Could you tell me any sort of unusual event or happening that has happened to you as an investor?
Yeah, I'd say that there have been a couple cases where I've met founders at parties and ended up investing in their companies. I think that's a interesting place where I found a few very, very interesting startups.
And, you know, that's a really good point because when I first came to the Valley and started interviewing VCs for my first year about 7 years ago, all of them said, you know, it's always good to get to know a VC before you want money and so that you have some sort of relationship with them. But I think these days with the whole Hollywood model that's hit particularly Silicon Valley, maybe not San Francisco so much, that's getting much harder. In fact, I saw a VC speak, we were streaming, and he was from Andreessen Horowitz, who of course have brought this model to the Valley, and he could not answer questions from the audience. The PR gal had to go through the questions before he was allowed to answer them. Yeah. You know, to me, that's even further removal from this meeting someone at a party, getting to know them and then having a relationship. What do you think about this big change that's happened as far as the venture industry goes?
Yeah, so founders have become celebrities, like artists. And in many cases, investors have as well. You know, I've always thought of the venture business as more like being a producer rather than being an artist. A little bit detached, but pulling some strings behind the scenes. That's kind of how I approach it.
Right. And so do you think this is good for the startup ecosystem, that this is happening?
You know, I think it's fine. You know, I think there have always been very famous investors and very famous founders. And I think, honestly, it's just a very exciting time in tech where we're seeing a lot of them very, very, very fast. I don't think it will always be this way, but I think right now it's okay and healthy.
Thank you so much. That's such a positive stance on it. From my seat, I've sort of worried about the negativities, and you know, the only negativity I see is that community is sort of breaking down and being affected a bit by that. But good to have a positive look at it. Thank you so much. Thanks again.
Thank you.